Welcome to Australian Apple News, and this is our review of the Huawei Watch Fit Pro 4. This is a pretty handy little smartwatch. It's really interesting when you look at smartwatches today. Apple has kind of set the benchmark with the Apple Watch, but we've got lots of other ones out there. Withings has got a new model out. We know that Garmin's been out there for a very long time, and there are lots of other smartwatch options out there, really, which started way back over 10 years ago with the first Pebble smartwatches, which I had one of those back in the day. What's interesting about Huawei's approach is that they've put out a watch that looks a lot like an Apple Watch, but does work quite a little bit differently. So, for example, you're going to, instead of working everything through the Apple Health app and the Apple's Watch app, which you'd expect with the Apple Watch, Huawei's got its own app called Huawei Health, and that one app does everything for the watch, including its configuration, setting notifications, allowing you to upload maps so that you can have live maps on your watch while you're out for a bike ride or out for a run. And it's got all of those things kind of all rolled into that one app. As a result, that app is a little bit messy, I think. What that means is that when you go looking for something, it's kind of a bit tricky to find things. So, for example, when I went looking for how to change my notification settings, there was nowhere obvious where that was actually listed. I had to actually go into the watch settings, tap on a picture of the watch, and then a whole bunch of options appeared. But there was nowhere that kind of directed me directly towards notification settings, as an example. So on that score, I think the software part of the Huawei Watch Fit 4 is kind of okay, but it needs a bit of work. I kind of feel like 2 more software updates where someone actually has a really good go at fixing the software and thinking about it as a user rather than as a software engineer or as a designer of a smartwatch. I think they'll go a lot further when they think about that user experience. The other thing, I guess, is what's really interesting is when I took it out I've taken it out for a few runs, I've taken it out bike riding. All of those functions work really, really well. I found the run settings and the bike settings a little bit chatty. You get kind of feedback from the watch telling you whether you're behind the pace that it's decided you should be going at. But it does let you know when you've completed a kilometre, how fast that kilometre was, whether that was your fastest kilometre while travelling and things like that. So it's kind of okay. I find that a little bit annoying when I'm running, particularly on a long run. I don't need to be told every kilometre when I've done something. I normally, for example, for a much longer run, I might only want to know where I'm at every 5 kilometres, not every kilometre. As far as wearability and all those sorts of things, look, it's a really comfy watch. It's very light. It's only just a touch over 30 grams, which makes it lighter than any Apple Watch that's on the market. Functionally, it works really, really well. It is different to the Apple Watch. And you're going to find they compare this to the Apple Watch an awful lot because I've been using an Apple Watch since the first one was released. This really feels to me like an Apple Watch 3 or 4. It needs a bit more refinement before it really gets all the way through to what it needs to be. But the one thing that it does amazingly well, way better than any Apple Watch ever has, is battery life. I've been wearing the watch for 4 days and I still have well over half the full battery charge remaining on the watch. In fact, that's been 4 days since I started using the watch. So on the battery life score, it's really great. If you live inside the iOS sphere or inside the Apple universe, you're going to want things that integrate nicely with HealthKit so that you can see things through Apple Health. That's a place where this watch has also let me down a little bit. I haven't seen all my workouts and so forth sync across neatly into Apple Health. Which is a bit of a hassle, mainly because that's where I'm used to things being. But on the other hand, what Huawei has done with the Watch Fit is they've gone for an Apple adjacent kind of approach. So everything you want to know sits inside the Huawei Health app rather than in the Apple Health app. So if you end up buying one of these watches, and they're really well priced, well under $500 for the top of the range model, you end up using the Huawei Health app all the time rather than using Apple's apps. And that's okay, as long as you realize that you're going to be sort of living inside a slightly different universe within the Apple universe. Overall, what I'd say is that if you're really looking for a smartwatch, this is a really great choice. If you're someone that likes to dabble between both Android and iOS, you're going to like the Huawei approach because it works with both platforms quite nicely. But as you'll see in the longer written review that accompanies this video, there are a few little foibles that I discovered through the software. I think overall, though, if you're looking for a smartwatch and you're on a budget, this is a pretty great choice.